Hey, what's going on, everybody? Locked On Badgers here with one of the Wisconsin great running backs joining the show. So excited to chop it up with him, talk about Braylon Allen, and everything else going on with the Wisconsin Badgers. All that and more on today's Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Ryan Herring's here, so Locked On Badgers. Once again, thank you for making this one of your first listens every day as we continue to build the Badger community. I've always said the goal is to get smarter people, better people than me on the show. Today, again, we definitely hit that out of the park. We got Brian Calhoun, former Wisconsin Badgers great, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, joining the show. Brian, thank you so much for your time, man.
No, Ryan, appreciate you guys having me, man.
So I wanted to jump into this. I wanted to start with, I'm recently on a show made a list of basically ranking the top 13 Badger running backs since basically after the Ron Dayne era. And I wanted to see kind of tell me I'm wrong on one of these guys or tell me I'm right. I also want to see if you agree with where I've got you. You ready for this?
Sounds good.
Okay, so I want to just start with the top 8. I had John Clay, Brian Calhoun.
Is this in order or from?
This is in order. Yep.
Okay.
So from 8 to 1.
Okay.
I've got John Clay, Brian Calhoun, yourself, Anthony Davis, James White, Braylon Allen, Monte Ball, Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor. Am I too high or too low on you for starters at 7?
I mean, I think.
And this is a loaded list. That's the thing with this list. These are all greats, yourself included.
It is. I think, like I think we were saying off air, Badger fans and this program, we've been spoiled with extremely talented running backs. Really good offensive line. So I think, if you look back all the way to right after Dayne, I mean, there have been a slew of running backs that have been tremendous. Michael Bennett was the back right after Ron Dayne as well. So there's some heavy hitters in there. PJ Hill was an all Big Ten guy as well. So that's a loaded list. I'm just, fortunate to even be mentioned that list. I think one of the knocks for me is, I wasn't at Wisconsin obviously long enough to maybe put up a career worth of stats. But I think, my 2005 season ranks up there with some of the great ones just because I was able to not only rush for over 1,500 yards, but also, catch over 500 yards receiving, which at the time, I think there was only one other guy that did that. So to be an elite company, I think that season should rank among the greats. But, Jonathan Taylor, Melvin Gordon, I mean, that's some heavy hitters. And Monte and those are Doak Walker winners. Braylon Allen's next in line, so I'm excited to see what he can do the next couple of years.
Yeah, so that was a very political, really good answer. I wanted you to dunk on somebody to say, nah, I'm bad. No, listen, when I made the list, so PJ Hill was on my list, Michael Bennett was on my list. There's so many talented players. Dare Ogunbowale played in the NFL for multiple years with the Buccaneers, right? So, yeah, it's an absolute loaded list. I wanted to ask you about Braylon Allen specifically because you are a strength and conditioning coach now. You're working in that field. One of the things that I've always wondered about, because he is so big, so physical, so strong at such a young age, is there almost a level diminishing returns if you're that big early? Can he continue to grow and build?
I think that's to be determined. I think, from a football perspective, I think he's going to continue to get better. Now that he's kind of the primary ball carrier, he's going to continue to get more reps, and his skill set's going to improve. From a strength and speed standpoint, sure, there's things you can improve on, but he's already so big. He's already so, physical, so fast. You're just trying to make sure that maybe he doesn't get too heavy. Maybe he doesn't get too stiff. But I think he has everything in front of him. And only time will tell. But he's still young. So I think he has time to grow as a football player, and all those physical attributes will finally match up with, his football skill set.
Is there, and I'm asking you specifically because you've been there as a workhorse back. I don't know if you actually know this. Do you know in 2005, you led the country in plays from scrimmage?
And so I actually did because, there was always kind of a running joke between me and Coach Chryst at the time because before game days, and this is a story many people probably don't know, but before game days, he's like, are you ready to carry the ball 30 times? And I think he kind of made it as a joke, but for me, it was like I was willing to do whatever I could for the team. I also spent, 2004 season redshirted. So I was like, hey, I'm fresh. you give me the ball, whatever you need. So there's often times where, I'll carry the ball 30 sometimes, also catch a few passes. So, but I enjoy ball. I enjoy doing that for my team. So whatever by any means necessary I was going to do to help our team win.
So is there any type of strategy then, being on both sides, being the strength and conditioning guy and having that background, because Braylon got nicked up a little bit last year, and some of football is just luck. Like some of that, I think we all understand there's an element of the wrong person lands on your knee the wrong way, you get hurt.
Right.
But there's also guys, Jerry Rice, for example, who played 20 years and never got hurt. There's got to be some elements of injury prevention. Is there something there, or is it just all luck?
Yeah, there's something there. I think it's how you take care of your body. And I think in Braylon's case, specifically, he just played a spring season of high school football. He had a few weeks in the summer, then you're playing a fall season with college or transition. Transition's hard no matter what. And so then I think you have a lot of football in a short period of time. I think that all compounded it. And then, going from training camp, maybe taking a few reps in team to all of a sudden you're the primary ball carrier. So I think all that has a factor in it. There's things you can do, but he'll learn how to pick and choose his battles, and whereas the time to either step out of bounds or run over a guy or whatever it is, he'll figure it out. But a lot of it's luck. A lot of it's how you train and take care of your body. That's one thing, when I played, I prided myself on, is just being the most conditioned guy and making smart decisions when I'm carrying the ball, not taking the necessary hit. And so I think that's why I was able to play a full season and really taking a lot of reps without injury.
Massive amounts of reps. And we're going to get into that next segment. Specifically, I want to talk to you about a Michigan game as well that I think everybody remembers.
Oh, yeah.
I want to first start here, though, with kind of your journey before we even get to your season, because you were, a Wisconsin kid, but you went to Colorado for 2 years. You redshirted there, correct? You redshirted and played 2 years at Colorado.
I played as a true freshman.
Oh, you played as a true freshman. Sorry. Yep. You played 2 years, lost a year in the transfer, came back to Wisconsin. How did they let you get out of state? What was that?
I look back at my recruiting, and a lot of people always ask if I would have changed anything. And so fortunately for me, I went to Colorado and got to play for Eric Bieniemy, which, the running back coach now is obviously the great coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs. So that was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. I grew up military. I was a military kid. So I kind of moved around when I was young. So I didn't move to Wisconsin until I was like 12 or 13. So I didn't have the roots of Wisconsin like a lot of other people. So for me, I was open to recruitment and going to wherever that gave me the best chance to play. Looking back on it, I enjoyed my time in Colorado. I got to play for Eric Bieniemy, got to play with really great running backs, Bobby Purify, Marcus Houston, Chryst Brown. And so I enjoyed that. But it turned out for the best, and me transferring back. And I think, there is a lot of, what ifs if I would have came right away, what kind of my career I would have had. But I'm pretty satisfied and content with how it turned out. And so
I want to ask you this too, because now we're in an era where players have a lot more ability to train. And I think it's a really good thing. Players can go somewhere, grow, and go to a better opportunity. They're not stuck somewhere. And if they transfer, they lose a year. You lost a year in the transfer process. So it's kind of a two-part question. I would imagine, without speaking for you, it's got to be nice to see players have that freedom to move now. But also, what is it like searching for a better opportunity, but also knowing it's going to cost you a year?
Yeah, it's a completely different process. I do agree with kids getting a chance to getting a one-time kind of waiver of where they can play right away. I think that's good for college football. Now, when you get into the weeds of guys transferring multiple times, then maybe that's becomes an issue. But I agree with that move that the NCAA made. Back then it was, if there were people going to transfer, I went through my high school coach. I called him saying, hey, I'm thinking about making a move. He called a couple of programs, and then that's kind of how we got the ball rolling. And at that time, schools still had to release you from, the school. So it's a long, drawn-out process. But I'm glad the NCAA is allowing guys to do that. But, on the flip side, I think that year that I sat out, although it was tough, I went from being a starter at Colorado to being a scout team guy. It gave me a lot of time to work on myself as a person, as a player, get settled into school. So it really worked out for me to be able to have the year I had in 2005.
And you did run track during that time period, right?
Correct.
It's not like you didn't like sit on the bench. Obviously,
Correct.
you were still busy, active.
And honestly, I remember, meeting up with Coach Alvarez when I decided to transfer and say, hey, I appreciate you obviously having me back, because a lot of coaches could have felt a certain type of way about a homegrown kid going somewhere and maybe not being open arms, but they opened with arms. Coach Alvarez was supportive of me running track, which was awesome. And so it was really a tough year, but I enjoyed it because I was able to get better as a football player, do well in the classroom, but also run track in the spring.
So I think you're also really interesting because you were there. Paul Chryst was your offensive coordinator, obviously the now head coach. You were there with Barry Alvarez. Is there anything that you saw in Paul Chryst? Does it surprise you that he's become the head coach and a very successful one at Wisconsin?
Not at all. I think Paul brings a lot of value in just the relationships that he creates, not only with his staff, but also his players. And he was the same way back when I played. He was also very honest, and he had very things that he wanted to get done, and he knew we were going to be a physical team up front. And if that means handing the ball off 30 times, that's what he's going to do. But also, he just tried to put his best playmakers in position to make plays. Myself, Brandon Williams, Owen Daniels, Matt Bernstein, Jonathan Orr. We had tons of talent that year, and so he just tried to do what's best for the group and really showcase their ability.
Put you on the spot here, but what's the angriest you remember Barry Alvarez being?
Angriest? Oh, man. I can't remember what game it was, but we weren't playing very well in the half, in the first half, and he came in screaming in the second half and, really just trying to get us focused. And I think it was one of those 11 o'clock a.m. Big Ten games.
Sure.
So we were kind of half sleepwalking. So he came in fired up. But, in the second half we came out and played. But he got fired up, not too often. But when he did, you listened and you corrected and you did what you had to do.
A sign of a good coach for sure. Hey, coming up next on our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about his career, specifically Brian Calhoun's, where he's at now, and just what I consider a legendary Michigan performance and what that feels like the day after. Coming up on Locked On Badgers. But first, today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline remains your #1 source for all your sports betting needs and information, future props. Everything is there. The website's easy to use, intuitive, and lots of also live Vegas games, roulette, blackjack, everything you need, live betting, favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today. Like I said, it's a great place to do the futures. We've talked about Wisconsin over under 8.5 a whole bunch. Again, I'm over. Brian Calhoun is probably the same way, being a Badger homer like I am. Go bang that over. If you're a big fan of a certain NFL team, it's a great time to get in on NFL futures. Who's going to win the AFC, the NFC? Pennant races are heating up. The website's easy to use. There's a reason we use that at Locked On. BetOnline, grab your mobile phone today. Head to the website to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you, everybody, again, for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. We're going to bring Brian Calhoun, former Wisconsin running back on the show. And Brian, I just want to take a second and catch up with where are you now? So you graduated Wisconsin, drafted into the NFL, and now you are a strength and conditioning coach?
Yeah, so, I was fortunate enough to get drafted by the Lions. I think everybody, wants their career go to play a long time and win a lot of games. And unfortunately, that wasn't my path in my career, but I was fortunate enough to get drafted. I was in Detroit for 4 years, but I was pretty banged up. Tore my ACL my rookie year, tore my quad my third year. But my second year we drafted Calvin Johnson, so I was able to his teammate. The year I got cut in 2009, we drafted Stafford. So being around some really great players was a great experience for me. Right after I finished playing, I knew coaching was something I wanted to do. So I've been in kind of the strength and conditioning field for the last 10 years or so. Start off with camps and so forth, and now I'm able to run a strength and conditioning program in Milwaukee. And I still do coaching track and doing speed camps and stuff like that in the summer. So it's something I enjoy doing. It's something that keeps me busy and it keeps me close enough to the football game that I can still enjoy it. That's
awesome. And giving back to young kids, lessons that you've learned and helping to build that next generation. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I wasn't going to ask this, but you brought up the torn ACL, the torn quad. What is the most painful injury you ever had? Like, can you pick one out specifically?
Yeah, I tore my quad in a preseason game at Buffalo, and it was just a simple kind of blitz pickup scenario, DN coming off the edge. Of course, the DN at that level is humongous, right? So I try to pick him up. You know, I got my left leg got folded underneath me and pretty much tore the quad right off the bone. And so, I mean, at that point, you know, after rehabbing the knee, I kind of knew that, you know, that my days were numbered. And I tried to rehab and come back, but it was just, I wasn't the same. But, you know, like I said, I can't look back with any regrets, and I'm happy with the way it went, just because a lot of people don't get that chance to play at the level and to, quite frankly, play against people that I grew up watching, you know, the Brett Favres, the Marshall Falks, the Daniel Tomlinsons, those type of guys, to play against those. I mean, that was, you know, a dream come true, and I'm thankful for the time that I did have.
Like you said, to play with a Calvin Johnson, to play with, you know, some just all-time players,
just amazing, and that's something that I'll take with me for the rest of my life, and so yeah, I'm thankful for the time I had.
I want to specifically, you mentioned it earlier, but I want to talk about it a little more specifically. The 2005 season, you know, you ran for about 1,600 yards. You also had about 530 receiving yards. You know, it's 2,200 total yards, which, if you look into the history of college football, like, you were being very modest when you said you think that's one of the better. It's one of the better college football seasons. If you just look at an individual running back, 24 total touchdowns. You know, it's, I think, 37th, or it's in the top 40 for career yards from scrimmage for 1 year. So it's an incredible year. I did want to ask you, though, looking, probably not in the moment, because you already kind of hit on it. You said whatever it took, you know, I was there for the team. And do you think, looking back at it, maybe you were overused a little bit? Do you think that leads to future injuries? Or, again, we talked about injuries being kind of a luck factor.
I think there's so many other factors that can go into that. You know, going through an entire season, really entire career, with the 2 years at Colorado, you know, I didn't really have any significant injuries. So then, does that compound? Maybe. But it also, some things are freak accidents. I remember tearing my ACL in practice in Detroit right before Thanksgiving, and it was kind of like a light drill. My foot planted one way and it snapped. So, I mean, that's kind of a free thing. So I think also, I think that brings light to a lot of guys maybe leaving early, or maybe leaving a year too soon, for a chance, especially at the running back position. The average career is 3.5 years. So when guys have a chance to leave early, maybe to capitalize on that situation, I understand. Now, that changes things now with the NIL, where you can make a little bit of money while you're playing. But for me, I think some of it's luck. I try to be in the best shape and as strong as possible, but, you know, unfortunately it didn't work out. But I have no regrets. I can't fault injuries, because injuries have kind of derailed a lot of people's careers. So it's just trying to stay healthy, and those guys that play a long time, so maybe they're just a little bit more lucky.
Well, and certainly to that point, Jonathan Taylor had a huge workload for 3 years, and, you know, has not had that injury. Like, some of it is just, you know, it's just a lucky or unlucky thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think as a running back too, I mean, it's different than maybe playing receiver or something, where, like, a running back, you like to be in a groove, right? And I used to, me and Coach Chryst had a great relationship. So he used to meet on Fridays and ask, like, what plays do you like? What plays are this? So we would always have kind of a top 12, top 15 play chart. And, you know, out of the 15, 5 or 6 were runs that I really liked. And our offense can really run. And so you like to get in a groove. Maybe not every single play, but you like to get in a groove so you can feel the game out. Where a receiver, maybe you're getting one every 6 or 7. So for running back, they don't mind the extra carries. Sure, you can take a blow here and there, but they like to get in a groove and a rhythm and feel the game out from there.
I love what you just brought up, talking with Chryst, like a collaborative. What are some plays you like? Can you remember, like, is there a couple specific plays? What did you really like? Did you like, you know, going inside, bouncing it out? Did you like, you know, what was in your wheelhouse?
You know, and I think, you know, I wasn't a very big guy. I played around 195, 200, but I really liked power, because you got, you know, obviously we ran it a couple of different ways. You had the fullback or the tight end pulling, you had a guard pulling. We ran it where we had the center pulling, but it gave you a chance to either hit inside or hit outside. I really like that, because it highlighted not only the running back skills, but it highlighted our offensive line to get up and move and get to the second level. And so that was one of our staples. I mean, we ran a bunch of inside, outside zones. Zones is a good play, because basically the lineman's pushing everybody one way, and then as a running back, you can kind of pick your hole. But yeah, it was a collaborative effort because, like I said, Coach Chryst wanted to put his playmakers in the best position. And so I remember we had a play. We had a play Coach Chryst literally made up on like a Thursday practice. And I think it's for Stocco. He just wanted to make it simple. And it was a route combination where it was called job, I think it was. So J was to Jonathan Orr, O was to Owen Daniels, B was to me. And so that was a read for Stocco. Hey, if J's not open, you go to O. O's not open, go to B. And there's awesome. Times where I'll be in the huddle and I go, Stocco, if the ball's not out in 2 seconds, dump it down to me and I can make it work. And a lot of times, we took checkdowns that were 4 to 5 yards and, go 20, 30 yards.
Well, and that's the one thing I wanted to bring up too, is when you talk about Paul Chryst putting people in a position to succeed, he was getting you out into space and getting you the ball in a lot of ways. Like you were just a weapon.
Yeah, and I think back to the Northwestern game, and a lot of people probably don't remember that game. We lost a high-scoring game at Northwestern. Evanston Field is just blah, right? We never play well there. It's always cloudy and half warm. The stadium looks like a high school stadium, right? We never played well there. But I had a game there where, I rushed for over 100 and caught for over 100. But really a lot of that was just check downs. It was screens. It was motions. So we were really creative, and Coach Chryst was really creative of able to get me the ball. But you also realize the matchups you have. Some games we knew it was going to be, a Brian Calhoun game. We're going to run 35 times like North Carolina. Some games we knew it was going to be a Brandon Williams game or a Jonathan Orr game or Owen Daniels game. And so we kind of went with the hot hand, and that's how we work. That's how we operated.
By the way, that not to derail, but that Brandon Williams, Owen Daniels trio, that's a really underrated pass catching trio.
I think they don't get the credit they deserve, right? Owen goes and plays 10 years in the NFL, wins the Super Bowl, goes to a couple, Pro Bowls. Brandon Williams was second-team All-American that year, and he was a tremendous returner. And then, Jonathan Orr had the top-end speed to really stretch the defense. And I think, when you think about that squad for a while, we had the school record for points scored until I think Russell Wilson's year. But we had a lot of explosive playmakers, and I think it was on full display when we played Auburn in the bowl game.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You hear about us not being able to compete with SEC speed. I think we were every bit or faster than they were in that game, and it showed.
Well, you were the MVP of that game, correct? The Capital One Bowl, you were the MVP, but Brandon Williams had a really good game as well.
Ryan, me and Brandon Williams, we always sat next to each other on the bus rides to go to games. And I remember before the game, he was like, man, I'm about to win the MVP. I go, Brandon, no chance. I'm winning the MVP. And that was a little side bet and joke we had because we knew we were going to have a chance to make plays, and we both had a chance to make plays. And fortunately, I got the trophy. He didn't, but it was a nice way to end Coach Alvarez's career at the time. It was nice to end the season and win 10 games against a top 15 opponent.
Hey, I want to make sure I get this in because we're running short on time. As I said, I will run out of time before I run out of questions, so I really appreciate it. I want to touch on the Michigan game that year, which remains one of just my favorite running back individual performances at Wisconsin. So Michigan had a really good team, physical defense. You ran you had 35 carries and 7 catches, so 42 touches. Everyone remembers kind of the Stocco draw at the end, but I was watching this game with my buddy who isn't a Wisconsin fan. We were in Connecticut at the time because we're both in the Navy, and he had never watched you guys play. He said, "This dude gets the ball every play." What does it feel like after 42 touches in a Big Ten game? How do you feel the next day?
That was an awesome game. They were pretty well ranked, high ranked. Night game, we were not ranked. So it was awesome. And I think Coach Alvarez gave a pretty great pregame speech because he just wanted us to be physical, and he knew we could be physical. I will say that Lloyd Carr defense was tough, and I remember Coach Carr having some comments afterwards, like they just wanted to hit me as much as they can, and they did. They were physical. There were times where I would get up and be like, man, these guys are really bringing the wood. But for us, it was just staying patient. And grinding on them 2 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards. It wasn't very pretty at first, but then the second half, we were able to open up some passes, a couple screen plays. And then I think I remember at one point, I must have carried the ball 3 or 4 times in a row, right, left. But that's the stuff that you live for, right? That's the stuff that you play in Camp Randall night game. So, I think in that total last 2 drives, I may have took maybe 1 or 2 plays off because you wanted to be a part of that. And so it was an awesome atmosphere. And I think it's one of the better games at Camp Randall, one of the better wins in Wisconsin history.
No, I would concur. I mean, there was a point, I don't know, you're a little younger than me, I think, but I don't know if you remember Tecmo Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
That video game. For a while, the offense was, Calhoun left, Calhoun right, Calhoun middle, Calhoun swing pass. It was amazing. I do want to ask 2 more questions on that game that I've always wondered. The next day you wake up and you're obviously younger, you're in great shape. You've already said you took care of your body. Still, because to your point, they were really physical with you in that game. How do you feel the next day?
They were. Funny story. I remember after the first drive, I don't know if it was Lamar Woodley or whoever, hit me so hard. I came back to the sideline. I was like to one of the running backs, like, hey, man, if you get in there, they are hitting. Like, beware. I mean, honestly, the next day, like, you try to sleep in a little bit. I had my family in town, so good to see them. But it was some time spent in the cold tub, some time getting some I think we had a weightlifting session in. But, I think all the preparation you do in the winter and the spring and the summer prepares you for stuff like that. And so I think we were back, had light practice on Monday. So it was business as usual. But, back then you don't really realize what you're in, right? Sure. I look back now and I'm like, man, I was nuts, right? Like,
sure.
But no, it was a great game, and I'm glad we were able to pull off the win.
Last question on the Michigan game. And I've always thought this because you had an incredible game. You had an incredible year. You're coming down that last drive. The play comes in, right? It's the famous Stocco quarterback sneak. Is there a part of you in the back who's like, nah, give it to me?
That was supposed to be my touchdown. Right? So I think that drive, I might have carried the ball 3 or 4 times, caught a couple passes, caught a pass on a little out jerk route to get to the 2 or 3 yard line. And so at that point, I'm kind of tired. I'm gassed. And so I remember Coach Chryst calling the play in the huddle, and I go, what? But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's probably pretty smart because they're expecting me to get the ball, right? So my job was like, well, I'm sucking there because I just had 6 or 7 plays in a row. So my job was just get enough of the backer so he doesn't hit a play on Stocco. So I was like, that's probably a really smart call, and that's why you're calling plays and I'm playing. And it worked out, and Stocco gets all the fame, but he knows that was my touchdown.
Yeah, he gets all the glory from that game. You're right. You got him all the way down there. No, it would work out. It was an incredible game. Hey, Brian, where can people man, I'm so appreciative of your time. This has been an awesome conversation.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you, follow you, kind of continue along with your current journey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm around. I'm on Twitter. Brian_Calhoun 2. I post a lot of content, not only about the Badgers and Lions during NFL season and college season, but a lot of strength and conditioning, speed stuff, NBA stuff. I'm a big sports fan, and so you can follow me there. But I'm always around. I'm always around Madison. I try to get as many games as possible. I try to check out spring ball and pro day and fall camp. So, but I'm glad and I'm appreciative that you're having me on today.
No, it's the honor's mine, man. And if possible during the season, I'd love to have you back on. We can
absolutely say less. I love talking about football. I love talking about Badgers. So I'm always in.
I would love it, man. He is Brian Calhoun. We'll post all of his Twitter stuff if you don't have it, guys, in the show comments. But once again, thank you so much, Brian, for coming on, and we can't wait to do it again.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So that is Brian Calhoun. We're going to have one more quick segment to wrap up the show. But first, today's sponsor today's show is also brought to you by Rock Auto. Rock Auto is the easiest way in 2022 to buy auto parts, continue shopping for your car. I've talked about my Jeep Jalopy all the time. The thing is always broke. I should probably just get a new car. But in the meantime, Rock Auto is the place I go to help keep it running. The website's incredibly intuitive, drop-down menus, and you're getting all your car parts 30, 50 to 100% off what you would get at that local store. And it's easier. You save time and you save money. You don't have to go talk to somebody at a local store and hope they have what you need because there's too many car parts. There's too many parts out there. They're never going to have everything in stock. So don't take the chance. Don't waste the money. Save your time. Get it cheaper, get it on time, and it's great for DIYers. This is a company that's been family-owned, been doing it for 20 years, and there's a reason they built up the brand loyalty they have. It's because they do it right and they do it cheaply, and you're not going to find a better value for your time or your money. Go to the website today, find the solution for your auto part needs, rockauto.com, write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so they know we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. Thank you, everybody, for making Locked On Badgers your first listen. Again, we continue to build the community. We were able to get Brian Calhoun on today. Just an awesome guest. Had a ton of fun chopping it up with him. We're going to try to do that again. Really appreciate everyone that's taken the time to listen, to like, subscribe, review the show. Coming up, guys, we still have this week, we're going to have a basketball State of the Union show, do some more football recruiting, more guests on the horizon. So really appreciate everyone that's been able to tune in. And if you're able to continue doing that, supporting the show as we build this community, I'd be very, very thankful. Thank you guys, everybody, so much, and we'll talk to you later.